Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name's Livy, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the show Shining Vale. So if you guys haven't heard of this show, it's a new Courtney Cox show, and I'm pretty sure it's on Stars. I happen to watch it off of Prime. You can do like a Stars free trial for 7 days, or you can rent each episode. And I just want to talk about this show because me and my roommate binge watched it in 4 hours the other night, and I'm absolutely obsessed with it. So I'll do kind of two parts like normal in my video, just giving my initial thoughts, giving you kind of the premise of the show, but without any spoilers. And then I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth about some of the events that happened in the show, and some spoilers will probably come up in that. The show was absolutely amazing. And the first time I heard of it was when Courtney Cox was on Hot Ones. It's one of those First We Feast shows on YouTube. And she was there to promote Scream 5. But at the end, she talked about a new project that she'd been working on, and it's called Shining Vale. To give you guys a little bit of an overview of the show, Courtney Cox is a writer. She is married to her husband, who is played by Greg Kinnear, and they have 2 teenage children. And the show opens with them moving into this really cool Tudor-style house in Connecticut. And she's going through depression. You kind of get the idea that there's a backstory of why they've moved to this house. To let you guys kind of know lightly, they are trying to restart their life in Connecticut. They lived, I think, in Brooklyn in a small apartment. So they got this big house. They want to refresh, kind of start a new chapter between the married couple and bring their kids as a family to this Connecticut home, just get back in touch with who they are as a family. This show is absolutely hysterical. So it is like a dark comedy. There are horror elements, definitely, but it's really funny. The dynamic that the entire family has together. It's very dry, and each character has a really great sense of humor. To give you guys kind of an example, a lot of stuff happens in the first couple episodes, and Courtney Cox is saying that she's seeing somebody as like a ghost, and Greg Kinnear is very much the dad, like stereotypical Midwest dad type, where he's like, oh, well, it was probably just a deer outside the window. You should really go chop some wood outside. It's been helping me a lot. Just random stuff like that is kind of a glimpse into the sense of humor that's in this show. And I can't believe the chemistry that Courtney Cox and Greg Kinnear have in it. Just to see that alone, it is hysterical. And I wouldn't have imagined that putting those two together as a married couple would be as funny as it was. But Courtney Cox's character is very dry, very doesn't care about how other people view her. She's a writer, and she's very outspoken, and she's kind of that mom that I feel like every mom wants to be. She drops the F-bomb. She lets her kids know when they're getting on her nerves. Like, she's just like that go-getter mom. She's a working mom. She's trying to keep the family together. She's trying to keep her own shit together. And she's like, fuck it, whatever. Like, it's just really great to see how sweet Greg Kinnear's like dad and husband role is compared to her, and how real that is as like a married couple. I mean, I don't know personally, but I really appreciated the authenticity that the cast seemed to have together and the characters created together. I absolutely love this show. Like I mentioned, it's on Stars. If you guys want to watch it, then go ahead and end this video here and come back when you've watched it and you're cool to hear any of the spoilers. If you're okay hearing spoilers, then continue on, because I want to talk about some of the elements in this show that I really loved. Okay, now that we've got all the spoiler-free people gone, guys, if you've seen this show, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But the elements of this show that are nods to horror films blew me away. I think that was my favorite part of this entire show. Like I said, we watched the whole first season in 4 hours. And they're just little half-hour clips, so it's not like it's a very long show. But I couldn't get enough of just... God. Oh, Lord have mercy. I could not get enough of all of the like Easter eggs of horror films within the show. So Greg Kinnear's role of chopping wood, very Amityville horror. I caught that right off the bat. There are multiple scenes in the last few episodes where Courtney Cox is reenacting moments from The Shining with an axe. There's one scene that I think was probably my favorite out of the whole season, and it's where they're throwing a little housewarming party and they're playing piano downstairs, and one of their guests has gone upstairs. He comes down the stairs and he pees on the floor and says that you're all gonna die, which is just Exorcist right off the bat. So I loved the nods to all the different horror films in this, and I feel like if I rewatch it, I'd probably pick up more of them. But it made me just love this show for it to be so meta, I guess, and be so aware of itself. There was another scene as well that I didn't realize until I was thinking about it yesterday, that it is a scene kind of reenacting from Amityville Horror when the daughter's up on the ledge outside the house. That happens to Courtney Cox, whose name is Pat in the show. So to kind of dive into the storyline, I was a super big fan. She is a writer. They've moved to this house because she needs to write her second book, and she happened to have an affair with the plumber that they hired for their apartment in Brooklyn. And all of the humor that goes along with like Greg Kinnear saying like, well, we had a handyman kind of, but like you slept with him. And even the daughter, just all these little digs to her mother kind of being like a hoe. It was so great to see that dynamic of like something awkward has happened to the family. That's the reason they're here in this creepy house. Courtney Cox, Patricia is starting to see ghosts. She's having like a mental breakdown. That's what they play into. And that really, it's all happening. But the reason they're there is because of her actions of sleeping with the plumber, who when we finally get to meet the plumber is really funny. He's a super sweet guy. Greg Kinnear goes to his apartment to return the drill that he left at their old house. And Greg Kinnear's like, you know what? I'm taking your cappuccino machine because you slept with my wife. And he's like, please don't do that. And then he's like, well, actually, it's really heavy. Do you need some help moving it? Like, I can help you steal it if you want. Like, the dynamic of these characters had so much comedy in them. Like, they're just so funny for all of them to interact. And that's very much my sense of humor of just like kind of intense situations. Somebody's had an affair. They're moving into a house. The house is haunted, but the small interactions, like the day-to-day interactions of all this weird stuff happening is really hysterical and just like so in your face, like weird. I love situational humor like that. So to carry on kind of with the storyline, they move into this house and Courtney Cox is on a very tight deadline of when she needs to write this second book. She had written a like love romance novel years ago, and there's another one that she's supposed to write that she's already gotten advances for. And so she's on a very tight deadline to do this, and she's got really bad writer's block. She has a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of sessions with the couples therapist and them two there. Sorry, my golden retriever just moved my camera. So we get to see kind of their love and marriage dynamic in therapy, but it's not like cruel. Like they both have good points and they both are trying to see each other's points, but just like point on other things like, well, she says she's seeing ghosts now. So they move into this house. She starts writing this book. She's got writer's block and things start to happen where she thinks she's starting to see like a 50s housewife ghost. And as she's writing this book, she starts kind of blacking out and continuing to write and not having writer's block. And she's like, I don't know where all these pages came from, but I'm writing really well. As the series continues, we get to see, or I guess as the season continues, we get to see her and the ghost interact a lot. And the ghost was kind of a sheltered 50s housewife who'd never got to really have any fun. And she is living vicariously through Courtney Cox as she gets to write this book. So she'll kind of take over her body and write this book. One of the catches is that to be able to take over her body, she does need to, Courtney Cox, Patricia needs to take her like anxiety medication that causes her hallucinations, quote unquote. So nobody in the family really believes that there is a ghost there. Everybody's just kind of writing it off because her medication causes hallucinations. It can, at least. It's one of the side effects. So it kind of comes to a head where Courtney Cox is trying to tell people there's a ghost in my house. I don't know what to do. And she goes to a nearby Wiccan shop. And the Wiccan kind of says like, well, have you made any deals with this ghost? Like you've mentioned that you need this ghost to help you write your book, but usually ghosts can't like inhabit other people's bodies and take over. I think you have a demon. And she's like, oh shit, well, how do I get rid of it? But also I need to finish my book. So a lot of this season is the dilemma between her trying to be a mom, restart their family because, it was screwed up because of something she's done, and then write this book and be a writer and not be like a washed up writer. She wants to continue her career and not feel like she's past her prime. So she ends up striking a deal with this demon saying, you can inhabit my body, but we need to finish this book and you're not allowed to harm my family. Well, if you know anything about demons, that's just not how it goes. So the family is in for it. At the end of the season, the demon, like I said, puts Courtney Cox out on a ledge. You know, she inhabits Courtney Cox's body and sleeps with one of their guests at the party. All this shit just goes awry, and in the end, the book is written like The Shining, where it says, it's like line after line, I'm gonna chop up my family with an axe. And Greg Kinnear sees that, tries to save the kids, ends up getting injured, and Courtney Cox finally comes to without the demon in her and is checked into a mental hospital. That was a very weird overview of kind of what happens in the season. But like I said, it plays like a comedy. It's got very like Santa Clarita vibes, where there's a super sweet husband and the wife is so likable, but she's got some dilemma that is causing all these horror elements to come in. It's right up my alley with all the nods to different horror films. With all the nods to different horror films. We've got The Shining, Amityville Horror, Exorcist, and I'm sure there's others that I just did not catch, which is why I want to rewatch it. But I really liked this show. If you haven't seen it and you've heard these spoilers, that's okay. I think you'd still probably like it if you give it a watch. It's just a gem, and I can't believe I haven't heard much about it besides seeing Courtney Cox on First We Feast. I did see, what made me watch it was I saw like a little teaser the other day when I was just scrolling through Instagram, and it was an interaction where Courtney Cox comes downstairs and she's like, I had a dream that the ghost in our house burnt me with a cigarette, and look, it's like right here on my arm. And her husband's like, oh, that's just a dream. He looks, he's like, oh my, that is a pretty bad, that looks like a burn. I think you burnt yourself. And she's like, I know, I just said that to you. Like, and he's like, well, you're probably just cooking bacon and grease splashed up. And she's like, when have you ever known me to cook bacon? Like, the interactions between them are just raw and really funny. So if you guys are interested in watching it, I absolutely advise you to just try it out. Like I said, 4 hours later, we were just sitting next to each other, me and my roommate, and we're like, one more episode, just one more. And then we watched the entire show. So I really hope there's a second season of it. I'm so interested to see where it goes, because last we saw, Patricia was being checked into a mental hospital. Her daughter and her son were the ones checking her in and kind of giving her over to authorities. We're not sure if Greg Kinnear's character is still alive. He was hit in the head with an axe, like bopped, and fell down the stairs. So I'm interested to see where they go from here. I feel like there's a lot more storyline that they could evolve to, because we don't know where the demon went, if it's still in the house. Like I said, Patricia's checked into a mental hospital, but she's like, I'm not crazy, you know? So if she gets out and this all starts back up again, I feel like there's a lot farther that it could go. Another thing I want to touch on is all of the like supporting characters in this show were really great too. There is one mom who's like the neighbor who believes that the house is possessed or like haunted. There's something bad in it. And Courtney Cox is like, ugh, this woman, like, fuck off. And she's right. She ends up dying because of this demon. It like kills her. And so the whole time, this like very Bible thumper lady was totally right. Poor thing. She ends up passing away. But her son and Gaynor, who is the daughter of the family, the teenage daughter, end up having a little thing together. Even though they're in like the chastity club at school, they have like a little romantic thing that ends up kind of spiraling. The son was one of my favorite characters. I forget his name. I think it's Jake. He's super into like virtual reality games and like Minecraft and stuff. And he ends up seeing a young girl ghost that was part of the family that had lived in the house. There was like the older housewife, who is blonde, who's actually played by the actor from Romy and Michelle. She's Romy. I caught that like right away. I was like, oh my gosh, she looks pretty much the same. Like her face is the same. So she plays kind of the demonic ghost. and they had a young daughter, and I think they had a son, and then obviously a husband as well in that house. And I'm pretty sure we get the idea that this wife snapped, maybe sold her soul, and killed her whole family. So we see the little girl with pigtails. Her name is Daisy. Jake, through his virtual reality games, thinks that she is part of the game. So he's, walking around with his goggles on and following her and kind of getting these clues. And he eventually realizes that she is not part of the game, that she's a spirit that's been roaming the premises. So there's a lot of fun elements like that. Like, Jake is kind of a nerd. There's a lot of jokes to him, like being a teenager and jerking off like in the closet and stuff, like teenage boy crap, like super funny. Just what parents have to go through with kids growing up. The teenage girl that dresses probably a little too scandalously, and the boy that's like, I just want to be alone, So like I said, such a fun dynamic. Such a fun show. I'm definitely going to rewatch it, and I so hope there's a season 2. And if you guys like this show, please let me know. Really hope it continues to get like more press, because I thought it was such a hit. And there's a lot of like spooky shows out there right now. For instance, I started watching Haunting of Hill House like a couple years ago, and I hadn't continued it because I think when it comes to a show, I do like a little bit of humor in it if it's got horror elements. That one seemed a little dry and a little too serious for me, and I'm probably on my own island thinking that, but I really haven't been able to get past like the 6th episode of it. And I think it's because I like horror shows that are either completely scary and go totally down that route, or they've got humor mixed in with them. And I felt like Haunting of Hill House was a little in between and a little more storyline driven. And Shining Vale is like what I feel like that could have been if there was humor in there. So it was a fun show. I think the name even gives a nod to The Shining and Amityville Horror because of all the elements that they throw in there. Obviously kind of breaking the fourth screen and being like you guys will catch this if you're horror fans, because there's the husband chops wood, there's a ledge. There's tons of moments from The Shining in the last couple episodes where she just snaps and has a here's Johnny moment. So overall, I give this show out of 5 stars, I give it 5. I mean, me and my roommate were roaring in every episode. There were very funny moments, and I was still super interested to see what happens, because there's like a storyline that is progressing very quickly and has very scary moments, but you're taken back to how funny it is and just how relatable the family is. So again, I advise you guys to watch it if you haven't seen it yet. I have rambled on for almost 20 minutes, so I will let you go. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe down below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!